Now that's what I call a blind brow.
Well, BMW M cars have been around since the mid-80s. Today we have a BMW M2 F87. It's not the pure, it's not the competition, it's the luxury pack. We want to see whether this car today is worthy of the M badge. Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Stu.
And this is inCARnation. inCARnation is all about driving cars, having fun. New cars, old cars, classic cars, all from a driver's perspective.
So we'll be having some pretty exciting cars coming up straight away. So if you like what you see, please subscribe, support us, and hit the like button. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. So Stu, here we are driving the Series 1 BMW M2. It's a fabulous car.
Well, you said it's a fabulous car, but how do we know that?
Yeah.
We have to do some driving to find out.
Let's do some driving. Want to see how this, how the M2 behaves on a bit of a windy country road.
Did you know this is BMW's first use of a twin scroll variable vane single turbo? It's not twin turbo, it's single turbo.
That's correct. And there's a couple of advantages there, I think, with the single. Mainly in sound. It comes on very quickly on boost. It sounds a little bit better than the twin turbos. It certainly gets a better engine note, a better exhaust note. And yeah, I think it works really well as a package. I think it's a little more responsive, funnily enough, than a twin turbo.
Compared to what? To the 235 that it's based on?
Yeah, well, the engine is the N55 basis out of the M2 235, but it does have the internals from the M4. So it's an N55 internals, pistons, crankshaft, and so on from the M4 engine. So very strong internally, pretty large turbo on it. The trusty old BMW straight six, you really can't go wrong. It's a fabulous engine. There's not too many manufacturers still producing straight six engines, and BMW have traditionally done them forever. And they really have them right. They're a really good package.
Hey, you chose a nice day for it, Mark. Out here in the Australian, we say bush in Australia, but it actually just means the countryside. So for our American viewers, hello Americans, this is the bush, as we call it.
The suspension's pretty stiff, but you know, it's a little choppy over some of the bumps. The feel of the steering is excellent, and it's certainly not uncomfortable at all over these bumpy country roads.
I noticed you're rowing this lever in the middle bit. Why is the automatic not working in this car or something?
Yes, well, I think one of the really good things about this car, the M2, comes in a manual. Not too many cars these days do come in manuals. There's no paddle shift on this vehicle. It's only about 10% of the Series 1 M2 was a manual, and this one is a manual. I really like it. A little bit of overboost there, up at about 6,500.
Oh, it does pull. That's good. Yeah, it's actually nice.
No need to heel and tow.
Yeah.
The car is blipping automatically. Does that really well. It's nowhere near as good as Porsche's auto blip, but actually it's pretty good. It does a good job. So you're hearing a fair bit of road noise. You're going to expect that. You've got 19-inch wheels and that are straight from the M4. Big wheels, big tyres, you're going to hear some road noise, but when you've got a car that handles and feels like an M2, sounds like an M2, a bit of road noise, you know, for me it's not a problem.
So what would be the equivalent cars up against it in this price range and performance package? I suppose the RS3?
Yeah, probably direct competitor is the Audi RS3, which is an awesome car. Very different car to drive to this. Naturally it's all-wheel drive, very responsive, handles very well. In some ways a little tame. You don't get the manual, you're on paddle shift there. A bit more involving being a rear-wheel drive car. You know, any all-wheel drive car these days are very, very clever. There's a lot of electronics doing a lot of the work for you. Here, there's still a little bit more driver input with this car when you're on the limit, and we're not going to be on the limit around here, but I've been lucky enough to drive this car on the racetrack a lot, and certainly when you're on the limit on a track, you do have to drive this car. You've got to think about what you do with throttle control. You can't just punch it out of the corners and let the all-wheel drive system do the work. You can throttle steer the car very nicely, and I think that's one of the great things with a BMW. You get a much more in terms of feel and dynamic.
How's the brake feel down here on this very choppy downhill?
The brakes feel good. The brakes, calipers, aluminium hats, and and rotors are straight from the M3, M4. So that's a lot of brake on what's a relatively small car, even though the weight is up a little on the M2, and particularly on this model, as this is not the Pure. This is the model with a few more luxuries. We've got the electric seats, heated seats, Harman Kardon, adaptive LEDs. There's a little more weight in this car than the Pure, but it's certainly not going to knock the lap time around. Overall, it is a little heavy, but the brakes are certainly more than up to the challenge. And that was still in comfort mode. So if we go to sport mode, in fact, if we go to Sport Plus, you'll notice a difference in engine mode.
Absolutely.
And actually a difference in pull.
Can you feel the suspension stiffen up a bit?
Doesn't change the suspension, just changes the engine ECU, changes the exhaust.
Okay.
So it certainly changes the engine note. You can really feel the difference in performance.
Yep.
And, you know, in terms of auto blip, when I drive a manual car, I tend to skip gears. I don't tend to go down through the gears. You know, even if I'm driving a manual race car, I'll tend to not go down through each gear. So,
particularly at Suzuka at the very bottom there, and you go straight. I've seen you go fourth to second at Suzuka.
Yep, you can do that. And the good thing with the auto blip here we have with the M2, if I skip from fourth straight into second, just gives us a really nice blip. And so it matches that.
Did you blip that, or did it do
it? Did it automatically? You can see the.
Are you kidding me?
The tacho went up. We go here. Really nice blip there down in the second.
You're right. You didn't even do it yourself. Whoa. Over the brow. Now that's what I call a blind brow.
There's a blind brow.
In rally terms, that you'd say.
We have an antique BMW
7 left
in front of us.
on big crest.
I don't know any of those numbers. I drive by field by braille. Tarmac rallies I've done a little bit of. Yeah, a lot of fun.
I'd like to do a rally with you.
They're dangerous. I'll
navigate for you. I trust you, Mark.
Yeah, I prefer to stick to a circuit where I know what's coming up next and there's no trees.
Almost did stop, and here we go. Oh yeah. But hang on a sec, who are we? Mark is a race driving instructor, whether it's setting lap records in GT cars in Japan or China, or his wins in Formula cars in Europe, or winning the Aston Martin Cup Championship. That's Mark. Me, I'm Stu. I'm not quite so well known, but I've owned and driven some pretty nice cars. I'm also a race driving coach and way too old to be an internet sensation. Together, Mark and I are inCARnation. And it got to about 4 grand in second. It suddenly lifted its skirts and away it went.
Absolutely. But it's certainly getting a bit of overboost up there over about 6,000. So it gives you that brief overboost, which is nice. It just really ramps the torque right up.
Woo! Oh yeah, this is very good. I thought I was back into the tarmac rally for a second there. But except we would have hit that bump a lot harder.
Absolutely, I'm not doing
We'd have gone ka-ching! Whoa! All right, I think this might actually qualify as an M car, Mark.
It's definitely an M car, and I think it's a classic. Like, BMW have really got this car right. It had to be really good to supersede the 1M, which has really become a bit of a cult car. It was sensational. This is the car that's the evolution from that. It's a completely new car, but it had to be good because that previous 1M was awesome. And this car is absolutely sensational, and I think, you know, it's destined to be a classic car. There's no doubt about it. That's fourth gear, pulling through those corners.
Yeah.
You feel the torque of the engine there. Very, very torquey. You don't need to rev this car. It's okay to rev it. It likes being revved, but there's an amazing amount of torque there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, really well balanced. There's a lot of rubber on the road. The suspension components are pretty much mostly from the M3, M4, all aluminium. A lot of unsprung weight, and in terms of the overall grip and balance of the car, it's a really well balanced package. It does remind me a little bit of the very original E30 M3, which I was fortunate to do a lot of driving in the UK. Lots of rubber on the road, really well balanced car, very neutral. You can provoke the back of the car with throttle if you want to. Probably leans a little bit to understeer, which is not a bad thing, but it can really be overcome very easily with a little bit of throttle through the corners. It's the one great thing about any M car. The seats are fantastic, the steering wheel is great. M steering wheel, a little fatter than normal, great ergonomics. The seats are fantastic. Being the slightly more luxurious M2 version, we've got a lot of adjustment with bolsters on the seats. They hold you really well.
There's very little sense of the weight transfer forward to back. It actually is so stable.
Yeah, it's very stable. You can feel it, and as a driver you can adjust that. You can really throttle steer the car. Ease on and off the throttle. I can feel that pitch in the corner if you want a little bit more weight on the front. You know, you can do that. You just lift a little throttle, you can feel the weight come back on the front, gives you a little bit more bite on the turn-in. And again, that's exactly what you expect from an M car. You're not going to get that with an M2 3.5. You will get it with an M2, you'll get it with an M3, you'll get it with an M4 to a lesser degree, and as the cars get bigger they get a little softer. That's one of the things I guess I really do like about the M2. It's a bit smaller, it's a bit more nimble, feels a little like a race car to drive, and a little less on the luxury and it's a little more raw, I think, than a lot of the bigger M cars.
Look, this actually is remarkably lacking in all the latest gizmos and fandangles and big touch screens and stuff. It looks fairly, almost, I shouldn't say old school. I like it. This is a gorgeous road, yeah.
The power steering has a great feel to it. BMW have really got the electric power steering right with the M2. It's an M Sport diff. Just gives you traction at the correct wheel at the correct time. It doesn't spin wheels. If it's going to spin wheels, it'll spin both wheels together.
So it's good.
Very good.
So
Very
although
good.
you've been telling me lots of good things about this car, but there's got to be stuff you don't like this speed camera directly ahead. Look at this.
Yep. So the speed camera there.
We don't like
keep it
that.
under 60 k's an hour.
Oh,
I don't
God.
like speed cameras.
I can run faster than this. I can't actually, but I can get close.
There's a lot of things that we really love about the M2. It's a sensational driver's car, but there's also some things we don't like. The one thing I would like is an analog temperature gauge. It's got a digital temperature gauge that you've got to scroll through to find. That is missing from this car, and it's in all other M cars, is the M button on the steering wheel to go into M mode, to change your sport modes. Here you've got to go down onto the console, and this is a little bit of a hangover from a regular 2 Series car. Kind of don't like that. It'd be nice if it was up on the steering wheel just to tie it in with the rest of the M range. The gearbox is very good, but in terms of the way it works, the ratios I really like. The fact that it has a manual gearbox at this level of car is sensational, because it really does help the car become a driver's car. The thing I don't like, the clutch is a little light. It doesn't have a lot of feel to it. I'd like it to be just a little bit heavier. And the gearbox just has a slightly longer throw than I'd like, and it's also just, I guess, a little bit vague in my opinion in terms of the feel. It's hard to make a really nice smooth gear shift, and it's hard to make a fast gear shift as well. It's certainly no Porsche gearbox in terms of feel.
Oh, okay. So a bit of a Porsche fanboy, are we?
A bit of a Porsche fan.
Why don't we drive a Porsche next time?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a Porsche for a drive next time.
Let's do the whole German contingent, then the Italians.
And then maybe some Japanese cars.
First one's performance. By that, it's not just engine performance, but handling, ride, cornering.
Yeah, look, I think really all round, entire package, I really rate it very highly. I would say 4.8 out of 5.
Okay, well that's close enough to a 5 for me.
Pretty close. Power is great, torque is great.
Presentation, the wow factor, visual appeal. I mean, if you don't know BMWs, it's just another BMW with boxy guards kind of thing.
Yeah, look, I guess so. You don't see that many on the road, but for me they do stand out, and if you're a car enthusiast, you'll spot them, particularly when it's Long Beach blue like this. It does kind of stand out a little bit in this colour.
Ooh, Long Beach blue. So what do you rate it in stars in terms of...
look, for me, about 3.9.
Okay, that's a 4 again. Practicality.
Yeah, there's not a lot of headroom in the back, but it's not too bad. It's a 2-door sports car. You know, it is what it is. It's going to rate a little lower. Probably about the 3's about right, I think, Stu.
Price is an important one, and by price I mean value for money, future value. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I think they're really good value. Possibly a little overpriced new. Second hand, they're extraordinarily good value. And my feeling is, if you're looking at measuring the value of this car off into the future longer term, I think it'll probably be a classic car. I think you're talking 20, 25 years into the future, and people will be raving about M2s and how great they are.
What about as a package? Entertainment system, driver aids, that kind of thing. It's a bit old school. I like the fact that it's not, you know, the latest fancy one great big LCD for all functions. It's a little bit analog, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit analog. The screen's fairly unobtrusive. It hasn't got one of those annoying things that looks like it's had an iPad stuck on the dash there. You don't want a sports car that's overdone with screens.
Probably the most important one of all, though, is personality. The feel-good factor, how you feel when you drive it. Do you want to get back in it again? Woo!
And you can drive it every day of the week and really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's going to look great in your driveway. Yeah, I think personality for me, probably about 4.3, 4.4, because it's got a lot of personality. I love the box guards, the flared guards. It's reminiscent of the old E30 M3s. It's the quantum leap over the regular 2 Series cars.
Yeah, mate, you're rolling up this hill in 5th gear.
So that's 5th gear. It's an 80k zone.
That hauls ass in 5th gear, mate.
Pulling up nicely.
I'm not frightened. Takes more than that to scare me.
All in all, it's a really great M car, and it stands up really well.
Okay.
In comparison to its predecessors in the M range.
So there you are, ladies and gents. Mark's verdict. It's scored pretty well on his star rating, as you can see on the rating right there on the screen.
So that's it, the BMW M2. I've really enjoyed driving the car today. It's a fantastic package, well balanced. The car looks great. It really stands out on the road. It's affordable, and it's certainly an attainable car. Is it worthy of the M badge? Absolutely, 100%.